I've gamed 90 days straight on the Steam Deck, and it has completely won my heart. From amazing gameplay, to amazing stories, to amazing visuals, they are all wonderful to experience on the go. So today, I'll present the top 30 must-play games to play on the Steam Deck in 2025. Let's check it out. So number 30 is Valheim. Valheim is a beautiful open-world survival RPG game where you get to build, fight, conquer different enemies, and it is set in a Viking-vibed island where you also get to gather different resources such as, farming, such as hunting, such as going mining to do all it takes to get the proper resources in order to build your land. What I love about Valheim is that, you can take your time to build your land while at the same time it also blends in where you get to fight those different enemies and also be able to marvel at this beautiful fantasy world. I mean, this is just something that is just really nice, and if you have a really massive brain and where you are very good at imagining things, you have a big sense of imagination, Valheim is just perfect because a lot of people that play Valheim, they just get addicted in building their land and where they can easily spend 100, 1,000, or hell, even 10,000 hours to play Valheim in order to enjoy and just get submerged in the Viking world. So yeah, if you love these type of building games as well as you love these type of open world games where you get to do things in a very non-linear format and where it is very timeless and your possibilities are endless, definitely check out Valheim on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Deep Rock Galactic. Deep Rock Galactic is a game in which you and up to 3 other friends get to play in first-person shooter fashion as dwarves living on this procedurally generated cave. What I really love about Deep Rock Galactic is that you get to work together as you go about, whether it is digging, whether it is exploring, whether it is fighting merciless hordes of enemies, as well as whether it is gathering resources. It is just a really fun co-op experience where you get to just embark on this adventure while exploring those different areas that just feels like space, some place where you normally will not be able to explore in real life. It's just really fun, really chaotic, as well as it just brings about teamwork, brings about the excitement. And what I really love about Deep Rock Galactic as well is that due to its very non-linear gameplay is that you can easily pick up and drop whenever. So that is also something that's really cool for people like me who from time to time enjoy co-op games but primarily love to play single player games. Deep Rock Galactic is just a perfect game to play. So yeah, if all this sounds really interesting to you, definitely check out Deep Rock Galactic on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Hades. Hades is a roguelike dungeon crawler game where you play as Zagreus, who is the son of, Hades. Since Hades is a very unforgiving father and Zagreus is tired of his father, he decides that he wants to escape the underworld. So you as Zagreus, you have to do all it takes to escape the underworld in order to get to the mortal world in order to reside with your mother. What I really love about Hades is the hack and slash element. I love just going in there and fighting various hordes of enemies, as well as what I really love about Hades is also the different interesting boss fights that you got to do in order to progress in the underworld. So that is something that is also very interesting and very engaging, as well as really love the soundtrack of Hades. The music just brings about the vibe of the atmosphere of the game and what's going on in the game. So yeah, if you really love a beautiful indie roguelike dungeon crawler game, definitely check out Hades on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Pepper Grinder. In this game, you get to play as an adventurous girl named, Pepper, who gets shipwrecked and robbed of her treasures. Yeah, very, very unfortunate, very, very tragic. So you as Pepper must do all it takes to restore your treasures back to you. In this side-scrolling platformer, you get to utilize, a grinder where you get to grind and drill holes to progress in the game, as well as kill enemies along the way, engage in interesting boss fights. The possibilities are just freaking endless. There are plenty of chaoticness where at times you could be grinding through water, platforming on trucks, driving on freeways, digging underground to retrieve new paths with new secrets. There's just so much chaoticness in this game, and it is just so colorful and so beautiful and so cartoon-like. There are also various puzzles to solve in Pepper Grinder, in which I also love as well. So yeah, if you are really into fast-paced platformers in which you are on your feet at all times, definitely check out Pepper Grinder on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Celeste. In this game, you play as Madeline, who has insecurities and where she needs to find security and find healing, and in order to do that, she decides to go on this journey to hike to the peak of Celeste Mountain in order to heal herself. And little did she know, as she hikes up Celeste Mountain, as you accompany her, you will get to meet interesting NPCs where they will teach her about life, whether it is for the good or for the bad. And whereas you get to accompany her, you also get to witness her experiencing breakthrough, where she gets to break from her cage of her negative inner self. It is a very emotional game where you get to platform up the mountain and where you also get to learn more about Celeste and just cheer her on in her journey for self-discovery. But also, what I love about Celeste is that there are also various secret areas in the game where you get those secret items. So yeah, if you want a game that is really beautiful, as well as it has a beautiful soundtrack and where it could be challenging at times, but also where the characters may potentially motivate you in order to become a better person, definitely check out Celeste on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Bramble the Mountain King. In Bramble the Mountain King, you play as Ollie, who discovers that his sister is missing at night due to his sister wandering out into the woods and not coming back. So you, as Ollie, being a great brother, you decide to embark on this journey to hopefully find your sister and at the same time bring her safely back home. Now, as you journey out into the woods by yourself, you manage to find your sister. However, as you and your sister is on the way back home, your sister gets captured once again by a ferocious, mysterious creature, and so you as Ollie cannot go home just yet, but have to go find your sister and save her from the creature before it is too late. What I really love about Bramble is how there is an awesome narrator. As you progress in the game, there are times where the narrator will just say a interesting dialogue where it sounds as if it is somebody like your mom who is reading a bedtime story to you who is a little kid. It just kind of has this type of aesthetics, and I just feel like that is just really artistic, and where it is just something that is just often overlooked and also really nice. As well as what I really love about Bramble is how, as you go about where you have to go into those different houses to solve these different puzzles, there are also interesting booklets, these optional interesting booklets that you can read where you learn about those different enemies in the game, their backstory, and that is something that I also feel like it brings about this extra spice, because it teaches me that potentially hurt people, that even though there were those enemies that are trying to harm Ollie, but at the same time, I can sympathize with them, their behavior of why they want to hurt Ollie, because they themselves have been hurt in the past. But another thing that I have to really warn you about Bramble is that when you start out the game, it may seem as just a fun, jolly adventure game, but as you go farther into the game, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but I have to warn you is that it starts getting very dark and very horrific. So that is something to really note for if you are somebody who is very sensitive to horror games. Then Bramble may not be for you. You might get nightmares, just as a heads up, because it could be pretty scary later on in the game. In the beginning, not so much, but later on it will be more scary, so you might have to avoid that. But if you are somebody who doesn't mind horror games like I do, definitely check out Bramble the Mountain King, because there is so much to the game and where it speaks to me in many different ways. Another thing that I have to also warn you is that Bramble could be frustrating, because in Bramble the Mountain King, there is no health bar. If you get hit by an enemy, you're dead. If you land in some spikes, you're dead. There is no grace as far as being hit, so that is something something to really also keep in mind that it is not easy. But anyways, if those things don't bother you, if you really love these type of games where there is a very big sense of emotion tied behind it, as well as where a game that it can speak to you in many different ways, as well as if you love these type of games where there's a beautiful soundtrack and a beautiful presentation, definitely check out Bramble the Mountain King on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Judgement. In this game you get to play as Takayuki Yagami, a former lawyer and current detective who is trying to solve the case of a series of murder incidences in Kamurocho, a fictional Tokyo district. There are really cool, interesting, engaging plot twists, various side stories which keep me on my toes, as well as there are really interesting and fun encounters with gangs that I can beat up while roaming around, similar to the various Yakuza games. What's unique about Judgement, however, is the fact about mortal wounds. The thing about mortal wounds, they occur when you get hit by those various enemies where they do various damages to Yagami, your character, and where if you get those mortal wounds, it will permanently decrease your maximum health, in which in order for you to recover your fullest potential of maximum health, you must do two different options. One, either find treatment from an underground doctor, or two, buy medical kits to use in order to restore your maximum health. So that is a gameplay element that I really like, that in which it is really unique. It just brings about this kind of strategy. It brings about this kind of thing in which you gotta be careful about not getting damaged by those tough enemies. It is something that's just really, really important to note. So yeah, if you are a person like me who loves a really engaging thriller story, as well as you love games where the story, the characters and all that speak to you in many different ways, as well as you really love these games where there are a unique type of gameplay style where there is extra spice to it, definitely check out Judgement on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Lost Judgement. Lost Judgement, in this game you play as Takayuki Yagami, an ex-lawyer who is now a detective and who has to investigate a bully/suicide case that is primarily based in a high school. Now, what I love about Lost Judgement is that there are plenty of unexpected plot twists, as well as a very thrilling adventure that you get to embark in. I also love where you get to go around those Japanese streets while beating up various thugs, as well as what I also love is that there are plenty of side things to do, most notably the side quests as well as school stories. In Lost Judgement, when you embark on those different side quests, there are many, not all the side quests, but many of the side quests, they will not open up unless you access an app on your phone where you navigate and track down something before the side quest is being able to access. So that is something that I find is really cool, because it really shows the life of how a detective ought to operate. A detective a lot of times has to find different cues in order to solve different mysteries. Now, the side quests, they also have different stories that are really, really touching. It just brings a lot of different valuable lessons that really teach me in different ways and speaks to me in different ways, as well as I also love going in with the school stories, because Yagami, in case you don't know, he is somebody that is about 40 years old, and as those different high school kids, it may be hard for him to relate to the high school kids, because people in the Gen X generation and the Gen Zs, they are much different as far as technology goes, as far as lifestyle goes. So what I really love about this game with Yagami, as far as the school story goes, is that he really am submerging his life to understand the people that are younger, the younger people, also teaching him different ways of living, and him also motivating the kids to also become a better person, to mature better in life, because he has obviously been living life much longer than them. So that is something that I also find really precious in the school stories, is that I'm somebody who may be in their early 30s, but at the same time I can learn from people that are much younger, but I also can be somebody who learn from people that are much older. There are always these type of value that various generations bring. One thing I don't like about Lost Judgement is that they took away some features from the previous this game, Judgement. I mean, one notable thing that I loved about Judgement was where there is this health bar where if Yakami gets wounded to a certain point, it will deplete his maximum health and he needs to go find a cure by an underground doctor or just heal it by finding specific aid kits and stuff. I won't give you any spoilers. All I'm gonna say is that is something that I really loved in the first game, and I am just really disappointed that it didn't include that in the second game. But anyways, if you are somebody who loves those Yakuza games and you love going around fighting up these different thugs, you like these type of action type of games, as well as you love games that speak to you in many different ways, definitely check out Lost Judgment on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ryse, Son of Rome. In this game, you play as Marius Titus, who is a person who just got trained to become a Roman soldier, and where in between him finishing his training and him getting deployed to Alexandria, he pays his family a visit, but unfortunately in the process of the visit, barbarians invade the streets and unfortunately kills his family, his mom, his dad, as well as unfortunately his sister. So you as Marius decides to go on this mission to go fight to avenge your family. What I really love about Ryse, Son of Rome is how there are a lot of enemies to fight in hack and slash fashion where you just go in and chaotically engage in the enemy fights and whatnot. What I also love about this game is how brutal the game is, where you get to engage in execution sequences as well as you get to use various weapons, either the weapon own as well as the weapons in the environment from time to time to engage in different fights to your advantage. There's just something about this game in which as I go about as Marius Titus fighting off those different enemies, it feels not repetitive unlike some hack and slash games. In this game, as I go about fighting, it really feels like as if I am just going in there because of how much I hate those enemies killing my family. It's just something that I feel just really special compared to other hack and slash games where some of them just feels very repetitive, but this one just feels very emotional in my opinion. So yeah. And then on top of Ryse, Son of Rome, the campaign, there's also gladiator mode where you can play either by yourself or with one friend, where you get to fight off various waves of enemies and whatnot. And that is something that I feel, even though that is not the major seller point for Ryse, Son of Rome, the major seller point for Ryse, Son of Rome is obviously the campaign in my opinion. But I am really glad that they included gladiator mode, because sometimes I might want to play some games with some friends where I can easily pick up and drop, and this I believe is one of those things that I can play with a friend cooperatively and where I can easily pick it up and drop whenever. But anyways, if you are somebody who loves hack and slash games and you also love these games where there is an emotional story to it and where you really feel for the character, definitely check out Ryse, Son of Rome on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Spider-Man Miles Morales. In this game, you get to play as, you know it, Miles Morales, in which when you play as Miles, you gotta help him balance his personal life while also protecting New York City, the residents, from a deadly virus. Now, the thing about, Spider-Man Miles Morales is that in this game, we see in the beginning where Peter, which is the other Spider-Man, he's gonna be gone on a trip for a few weeks, so Miles basically has to cover for him. He has to be the person who guards the fort and basically protects the residents. Peter is gone to take care of other business and Miles has to take over. Now, the thing about Miles Morales, I know a lot of people, they don't like Miles Morales that much due to it being a much shorter game, but the thing is that, to be honest, for me, I resonate with Miles Morales much more than, Spider-Man 2018. Now, Spider-Man 2, I would have put it on this list this far down, but at the same time, Spider-Man 2, in my opinion, it doesn't really touch me as greatly as, Spider-Man Miles Morales, so I wouldn't put Spider-Man 2 all the way down, also let alone that Spider-Man 2 doesn't really run as well on the Steam Deck, so that's also another factor. But anyway, Spider-Man Miles Morales, what I actually really love about Spider-Man Miles Morales is that I really love how you get to explore New York City, where you stop those different crimes, as well as I really love those different attacks, the attack moves like the Venom attack, which is just really cool and really fun, in where you just blast at those different enemies and whatnot. I love that inclusion of it, as well as I really love, as far as the game goes about the side activities, is having the ability to clear out those different Roxxon labs and hideouts, which is basically story related. I won't give you any spoilers, don't worry, and where you get to fight those different waves of enemies when participating in those different activities. As well as what I really love about Miles Morales is that compared to Spider-Man 2018, I feel like they really improved on the various challenges. Now, Spider-Man Miles Morales, even though there are, stealth challenges, combat challenges, traversal challenges, what's cool about these challenges is that these challenges work as a way for Peter being a mentor and teaching Miles the ropes on how to literally survive and protect the people in New York City. And the thing about those different challenges, what's really cool about it is that they have a lot of spice to it. For example, you could have one combat challenge in which you have to kill the enemies by launching them in the air, and while another challenge could also be a combat challenge where you basically have to kill the different enemies without taking damage. That's what I kind of remember, is that even though there are various challenges that may be labeled as the same kind of category, like combat, stealth, or traversal, but there are also those objectives in those different challenges that brings about the spice to the different challenges. It is not straightforward like Spider-Man 2018, where, a stealth challenge is just where you take out those different enemies stealthily, and where a combat challenge, you're just basically racing in the time to kill those different enemies at a specific time. No, Spider-Man Miles Morales, the thing about those challenges is that there is extra spice to it. There are specific things you have to do even in those specific category of challenges. So that is something in which I really love about Spider-Man Miles Morales, much more than Spider-Man 2018. As well as I really love about Spider-Man Miles Morales, the story of it. I love how, Miles is just growing up and basically just learning about what it means to cherish his family life, to care about the things that matter to him the most. And there's also these struggles in Miles' complicated life in which I just feel really touched as well. So yeah, if you are somebody who doesn't mind shorter games and you love these type of open world games where there are tons of things to do, but at the same time you also love it to be a short and sweet story that is touching as well, definitely check out Spider-Man Miles Morales on the Steam Deck. So number 20 is Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 is a third-person action-adventure game where you get to play as Rico Rodriguez, who returns to his homeland, and unfortunately his homeland is now under control in dictatorship. And so you, as Rico, you must go on this mission to overthrow the dictator. It is a really fun, chaotic game where there are amazing exploring mechanics such as the tethering mechanics, as well as utilizing the variety of weapons such as rifles, missile launchers, aircrafts, ships, cars, and many more. It's a really fun, chaotic, action-packed adventure where the possibilities are just endless. So yeah, if you really love these type of action-packed games where there is a beautiful world to explore and where you can blow up stuff, you can also fight in various different ways that are just so remarkable, definitely check out Just Cause 3 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. In this game, you get to play as Wei Shen, who is an undercover cop who is on the mission to infiltrate the strongest triad in Hong Kong. What I love about Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition is that there are plenty of things to do. You can just drive around town, engage on various missions, whether it is the triad missions, whether it is the cop missions, whether it is just regular civilian side missions. There's just so many different variety of missions that you can do throughout the streets of Hong Kong. And what I also really love about Sleeping Dogs is that how, even though it has the vibes and aesthetics, in my opinion, kind of like GTA games, that's just my personal opinion, but what I really love about Sleeping Dogs is that it is more lenient towards melee combat instead of firearms combat, which to me is just really cool. Another thing that I also love about Sleeping Dogs is that it it also has this Asian vibe. As somebody who is Asian, I kind of like that because it kind of just relates to me, even though I am not an undercover cop. But it's just cool to see games where when there are those dialogues where people speak in Chinese. It's just really cool to see that from time to time. But don't worry, even if you don't know how to understand Chinese, like if you don't know the language, you can still be able to play it, because as far as the game goes, the main story as well as the side quests and all that, most of it still has English in it. And whenever the characters speak in Chinese, there always will be English subtitles down there. So don't need to worry, even though some of the dialogue is in Chinese, but you will still be able to understand what's going on in the Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. But anyways, if you really love, cop games, you love open world action games where there's a lot of things to do and where you can just go around and treat the city as if it is your city, definitely check out Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition on the Steam Deck. Now, number 18 is the Saboteur. The Saboteur in this game, you play as Sean Delvin, who moved to France as a way to move on from his life as an outlaw. Since France at the time of the game, the game takes place in World War II, it is currently occupied by German Nazis. So you, as Sean, you decide to find purpose by fighting for France and joining the French resistance in order to fight and kick the Nazis back and make France become free. What I really love about the Saboteur is that it perfectly blends driving, shooting, melee combat, exploration, mashing that all together. I mean, you could be just driving in the countryside for 1 minute, and then a few minutes later, you are suddenly in the city engaging in massive shootouts. Man, it's just something that just brings about all these varieties, all these things going on, and all this craziness and chaoticness, all these different things just all blending in together. But what I really want to praise the Saboteur is that I love how there is this amazing thing about their illustrations. For areas that are occupied by the Germans, it would be black and white, which signifies, doom and gloom in France. When you continue and progress in the game, you will liberate various areas. Those liberated areas will have their color aesthetics restored, basically just showing that that part is becoming peaceful and the civilians living in that area of France will be safe and secure. It's just really cool to see how there is just this type of illustration that brings about this vibe of what's going on in the game. But anyways, if you really love historical fiction type of games where there's a whole bunch of action in it, definitely check out Saboteur on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. In this game, you play as Senua, who is dealing with psychosis and where she must journey to Helheim in order to save the soul of her deceased soulmate from the goddess. What I really love about this game is not only is the Norse mythology and all that kind of lore and whatnot, but also what I really love about Hellblade 1 is that it takes place in this dark fantasy world and where it just perfectly blends the gameplay concepts of puzzles, of the disability awareness, aka psychosis, as well as melee combat, and it just makes me really feel the thing about what's going on with Senua, somebody who is dealing with psychosis. People who have this type of disability, it doesn't stop them from achieving what they need to achieve. It's just something that is just so remarkable. So yeah, if you really love dark fantasy, emotional games where there's a deep story, as well as there is a strong vibe, strong sense of disability awareness, definitely check out Hellblade 1 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an action-adventure game set in the fictional Wild West 1899, in a sense that the aesthetics, they bring about this picture of what the Wild West of America is like, but at the same time, the lands, the names, and whatnot, they are fictional. As far as combat side of things, you can engage in melee combat, firearms combat, using bow and arrow, as well as using dual-wield weapons, and many more. As well as what I really love is that there are also a whole bunch of different side activities, such as dueling, bounty hunting, just to name a few. So yeah, if you really love action games where there is an interesting story as well as where there are just a lot of things to do, definitely check out Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Horizon Zero Dawn. In this game you play as Aloy, who is a young hunter who is living in a world dominated by machines and is on a mission to unveil her past. What I love about Horizon Zero Dawn is that how there is a beautiful world to explore, as well as what I love about it is that you get to fight those different machines, whether it is shooting arrows or just going straight in bare bones with melee combat. As well as what I love about Horizon Zero Dawn is that there are a whole bunch of different side quests that I get to do where I get to help those around me as Aloy, as well as what I also love is engaging in those different trials, which is basically challenges in other types of games. And what I really love specifically about the trials is that there are a variety of different types of trials where I believe that Guerrilla Games, they did a very good job in it. There is just a whole bunch of creativity that goes behind the different trials. For instance, there is one specific trial that I remember where you must use the environment to your advantage in order to kill the different machines, to kill a certain amount of machines at a specific time limit, and I find that really interesting. So yeah, if you really love these type of action games where there is a beautiful story as well as a beautiful world to explore and where there are lots to do as well as just going about hunting and exploring and whatnot, definitely check out Horizon Zero Dawn on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Halo Master Chief Collection. Halo Master Chief Collection is 6 for the price of 1, baby, where it includes 6 classic Halo games. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, Halo Reach, Halo 2 Anniversary, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, as well as Halo 4. What I really love about Halo Master Chief Collection is that it is just really iconic. It just brings back the vibes of the classic games that I enjoy back in the day. Those really fun first-person shooter games that just brings about all these different types of memories. Halo Master Chief Collection, in my opinion, they are also the best games in the Halo franchise. They just basically identify what the Halo games ought to be. So the major thing is that if you are somebody who's a long-time Halo fan, you must check out Halo Master Chief Collection. If you are somebody who just wants to kind of hop into the Halo franchise, you must check out the Halo Master Chief Collection. It is just something in which it is just so mind-blowing, so amazing, and where it's really great to be able to play on the Steam Deck and play on the go whenever possible. Now up next is Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Blind Forest is a Metroidvania platformer game where you get to play as Ori, a spirit guardian who is on this mission to revive a withered forest by restoring the 3 elements of light. What I really love about Ori and the Blind Forest is the beautiful world to platform, as well as there are also those different secret areas that you can discover. Also on top of that, there is an emotional story that brings tears to my eyes, as well as a beautiful soundtrack to bring all that awesomeness together. It's just really cool, really fun, and the music, I will say this, is that very few games, in my opinion, have better music than Ori and the Blind Forest. They are those type of music in which I will find myself to be playing them regularly, even when I'm not playing the game or when I'm with other friends. Even friends where they are not in a good mood, they will ask me at times, can we play some music from Ori, Joe? The soundtrack is just really top notch. It not only brings the mood and vibe of the game together, but it also is just really relaxing that you will potentially want to play them not only when playing the game, but also outside, as the music can be quite addicting as well. But anyways, if you love these type of beautiful platforming games where there is just an emotional story, as well as you love these type of games where it is also not that challenging as well, because I understand that for some people, you know, they will get turned off by platformer games because some platforming games are just really challenging. But Ori and the Blind Forest, I feel like it is a good start to get into even the platform platforming genre. There are parts where it is just a bit tricky, but at the same time, it is also not overwhelmingly hard. So yeah, if you really also love these type of platformers that is also not that hard, but at the same time also fun and emotional as well, definitely check out Ori and the Blind Forest on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest. What I love more about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is that there are side quests that you get to engage, because believe it or not, Ori and the Blind Forest, there is no side quests. Yes, there is exploration and there is story progression, but there is no side quests to do in the game. The only reason to go back to a certain part in Ori and the Blind Forest is to just discover certain areas in which you cannot access before, because at the time that you encounter those different areas, you don't have the skills to get into those areas. So the only reason to go back to certain areas in Ori and the Blind Forest is to access certain parts of the map which you could not access before. However, in Ori and the Will of the Wisps, there's another incentive to go back to certain areas, and that is to engage in those different side quests. I believe those side quests, they bring about those different values in the game. As well as what I really love about how there's those different side quests is because it just feels that Ori gets to engage more with the community in the forest. It just makes me feel as if Ori is being more intentional with the residences in the environment. It's just one of those type of little things that just really matter a lot more in my opinion. As well as what I really love about Ori and the Will of the Wisps compared to Ori and the Blind Forest is that Ori and the Will of the Wisps, it is also heavily reliant on auto-saving. When you progress in the game, there will be that icon at certain points where it shows that the game is saving, and that is something that I find really valuable as well, because I'm somebody who is not that great at gaming. I do love games a lot, that's why I make this channel, but at the end of the day, I have to admit that I'm not the best at gaming, so having auto-save features is just something that is really practical for me, because I don't want to be where if I pass a certain part of the game that's just really challenging and I forget to save, then I have to redo the challenging part of the game again. I mean, that was one of the things that I had struggled with Ori and the Blind Forest. There are certain challenging parts of the game where I passed and I forgot to save, and where I had to redo the challenging part. So I'm really glad that Ori and the Will of the Wisps, there is also this part of auto-saving where, you know, if I mess up and I forget to save, then sometimes there could be a chance where it auto-saves and I don't have to redo certain parts. But anyways, another thing that I really love about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is the introduction to spirit trials, where you get to race against a spirit, and the goal is to beat it and to receive spirit light, which is the currency for you to buy different important necessities in the game. As well as what I really love is the inclusion of combat shrines, which you get to fight waves of enemies, and where you also receive those different rewards that will help you along your journey to progress in the game. Even though I praise Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and I love Ori and the Will of the Wisps so much better than Ori and the Blind Forest, but I have to warn you, what I really don't like about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is that the story, in my opinion, is not as inspirational as Ori and the Blind Forest, just as a heads up. Aside from that, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is just better in every other way, so honestly, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is just a much better, much polished game, in my opinion. But anyways, if you really love these type of Metroidvania platformer games where there is a beautiful world to explore, as well as an amazing soundtrack, and where there is a lot of things to do and whatnot, and also interesting boss fights, definitely check out Ori and the Will of the Wisps on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ghost of Tsushima. This game is a beautiful open world action adventure game where you get to play as Jin Sakai, a samurai, where him and his uncle Lord Shimura starts out, you know, fighting off those different Mongols on the beach. However, they are severely defeated, where Jin miraculously is saved and Lord Shimura is captured by the Kotu Khan, which is the leader of the Mongols, and held hostage. Now you as Jin, since you love your uncle Lord Shimura, and where Lord Shimura is the only family member that is still alive, you decide to go on this mission to save your uncle. However, little did you know that as you go on this mission, it becomes much more than saving your uncle. As you go about this mission to save your uncle, along with those people around you who support and believe in you, you end up doing much more than saving your uncle, but also learn yourself more. Learn that it's really important to save people instead of being strict and religious in the samurai code of honor. It's just a very emotional story about friendship and doing all it takes to save those around you, to care for those around you, to value life to its fullest. Now, what I really love about Ghost of Tsushima is the side activities that you get to do. The side quest called Tales of Tsushima, even though it is optional, but I highly recommend playing all those Tales of Tsushima, experiencing them to the fullest, because you get to understand those different stories as you bond with those different people around you that mean a lot to you. As well as what I also love is how there is a deep lore in those mystic tales and whatnot. And also what I really enjoy is, on top of that, there are also a lot of things to do in the open world aspect of Ghost of Tsushima, whether it is engaging in those bamboo strikes, as well as going into those different hot springs and just reflecting on life. It just brings about those different immersion in this beautiful world of Tsushima Island. As well as what I really love about Iki Island, which is the DLC that is included in Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, is that it also further brings about Jin's healings from his past wounds. That is also something that's just really emotional. And by the way, I have an in-depth review on Ghost of Tsushima, sharing my deep thoughts, going all into the game about all you need to know about the game, whether or not the game is for you or not. So I have that. Feel free to check it out if you are interested in Ghost of Tsushima. We'll much appreciate that. But anyways, if you really love games where there is a lot of things to do in the game and where there's an emotional story that really teaches you a lot about life and speaks to you in many different ways, definitely check out Ghost of Tsushima on the Steam Deck. So number 10 is Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. In Yakuza 6, you play as Kazuma Kiryu, who just got out of prison and realizes that his daughter is in a coma due to a hit-and-run collision, leaving her baby son, aka Kiryu's grandson, alive and without the nurture of his mother. So you, as Kiryu, must take full responsibility by caring for your grandson like how a great father ought to treat his son, while discovering the dark secrets and truths tied to your daughter as well as your grandson. On top of that, you will also uncover the secrets of the Hiroshima Yakuza. There are plenty of various side quests that are also impactful to me as well, in which they taught me so much about life. What I love about this game is you get to beat up those various hordes of gangs or low-lifers along the streets of Japan, and what I really love in the process of beating them up is the bringing of those different dialogues where the gang members mock the MC, in which I find quite funny at times. Now, as you progress, what I also love about the gameplay style is that you get to upgrade your skills, which makes you stronger and being able to take down much tougher enemies as well. So yeah, if you love these games where there's a whole bunch of action to it, as well as you love these Yakuza games where there is this gang life in Japan, as well as you also love these games that have a touching and beautiful story to it, definitely check out Yakuza 6, The Song of Life on your Steam Deck. Now, number 9 is I Am Setsuna. I Am Setsuna is a top-down, turn-based RPG-style game in which you get to play as Ender, the guardian of Setsuna, who is a woman chosen as the sacrifice in hopes to appease the monsters to prevent them from attacking your village. Throughout the game, you'll meet very interesting characters which will become your party member and assist you along the way, as well as you get to meet those different NPCs who gives out those various dialogues which brings about life in the civilization as it currently stands, as well as you get to engage in various monster fights with various strengths and weaknesses, and buy and upgrade your gear, as well as adding accessories to it to buff your party members, like how those RPG games work. What I really love about I'm Setsuna, on top of these attributes, is you get to also engage in exclusive side quests which are pertained to particular party members. And what I also really feel I'm Setsuna shines is the illustration of the world, from the snowy landscape to the soundtracks to the way the characters bond on their journey. It just brings about a beautiful story in which there are so many touching moments in which they help me reflect on my life and become a better person. So yeah, if you really enjoy those turn-based RPG style games and where there are also an amazing cast of characters in which there are an amazing story in which they teach you so much about life and motivate and captivate you, definitely check out I'm Setsuna on the Steam Deck. Number 8, God of War 2018. God of War 2018 is a fun, action-packed adventure game with an amazing story where you play as Kratos, the iconic God of War franchise figure whose wife Faye passes away, leaving just him and his son Atreus as part of the family. Now, to give one last honor to his wife Faye, Kratos and Atreus goes about on a journey to the highest point of the 9 realms based on Norse mythology to spread the ashes of Faye. Throughout the journey, there are plenty of moments where Kratos taught Atreus how to grow and mature into a man both physically and mentally, such as helping him learn how to hunt as well as learn to control his anger. And those moments are extremely impactful. As for the action side of things, there are plenty of enemies to fight using various weapons such as the Leviathan Axe and later the Blades of Chaos, each having their own strengths and weaknesses. It is just so immersive and so engaging and so fun as well as so touching. But what I also love about God of War 2018 is that it also incorporates those RPG elements where you get to tinker your gear as well as learn new skills in fighting. So yeah, if you really love these action-packed games with an impactful story and a beautiful world where you get immersed in, definitely check out God of War 2018 on your Steam Deck. Now, number 7, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a masterpiece, an RPG challenging game with tough enemies, tough bosses, as well as a beautiful world to roam around. What's cool about Elden Ring is that there are a whooping 10 different classes to choose from, which brings about a diverse variety of how you will experience and feel in Elden Ring. So the gameplay possibilities are just pretty much endless, and not to mention there is also a vast open world environment that is also engaging, intriguing, and interesting to explore as well. On top of this, what I also love about Elden Ring is that there are various multiplayer modes. You can choose to do 3-player co-op in which you and 2 other friends just go about this open world to tackle the environment and whatnot, as well as you also get to do those PvP duels. So yeah, if you really love open world games which has tough enemies, tough bosses, as well as there is a amazing world to explore and where the possibilities are endless, definitely check out Elden Ring on your Steam Deck. Now, number 6, Cyberpunk 2077. This game is a first-person action RPG game set in the fictional futuristic city called Night City, where there are tons of danger. What I love about Cyberpunk 2077 is the beautiful world that you get to explore, which is extremely immersive. It just feels as if I'm currently out and about, whether it is on a mission out of civilization or doing business in a city and roaming around. As well as I really love how there is a diverse amount of weapons, skills, and abilities. And on top of that, a diverse of things to do in Cyberpunk 2077. You can hack, you can engage in dialogue options, as well as do many more. So yeah, if you love these action games that are flashy and have interesting characters to engage with, as well as a beautiful landscape and having so much to do, definitely check out Cyberpunk 2077 on your Steam Deck. Now, number 5, Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden is a turn-based RPG game about a high school protagonist who moves into a countryside town of a fictional Japanese city called Inaba, where he meets new friends while solving the mysteries of various murder cases in town, with the privilege of both interacting with the real world as well as entering into the cognitive realm through a TV and fighting all the way to the end in the form of their personas, which resemble the name of the series, but also the avatars reflecting on each individual, and are activated only when entering the TV and fighting and exploring various dungeons. The key is to fight and level up the various personas of each character to grant more skills, in which you will become stronger and buffer and whatnot in order to tackle more enemies in the games, in the dungeons and stuff. What's cool is that Persona 4 Golden perfectly blends turn-based RPG games with high school life simulation games, as in between those various deadlines in which you have to go into the TV to enter those different dungeons to tackle the dangers and whatnot to save a shadow out of those different dungeons, is that in between those different deadlines they get to form different bonds with others, as well as participate in various classes. As well as what I love about Persona 4 Golden is they're prioritizing their story arcs in the different bonds that they form, because the thing is that when you form those different bonds, not only do they help in making you stronger and better prepared to face whatever danger lies ahead in those various dungeons and stuff, but also what's cool about those bonds is that there are also these unique story arcs in those different characters about the different things that they face, those different challenges, and where you play as the protagonist and you bring hope to them, bring encouragement to them. So those kind of bonds, those story arcs, I believe that it is something that's definitely worth checking out. Definitely not skip it, and whenever you have the time, definitely spend time to bond and make those different friends, those connections and whatnot. It just brings so much spice into the story of Persona 4 Golden. So yeah, if you really love these type of turn-based RPG games where there is a rich story in which there are these different interesting characters, in which there is so much to do, and where you get to learn so much about those different stories, those things that captivate you and also teach you in how to become a better leader, definitely check out Persona 4 Golden on the Steam Deck. Now, number 4, Persona 5 Royal. In Persona 5 Royal, this is a turn-based RPG game. You get to play as a high school protagonist named Joker, who is unfortunately wrongfully accused of sexual misconduct and sent to Shujin Academy for an entire school year due to probation. At the school, he gets to meet new friends, and suddenly they all witness a mysterious app being planted in their phones, which give them access to the metaverse, aka the cognitive realm of corrupt adults, where the friends fight those different shadows in there and quote-unquote steal their treasures, which forces a change of heart in which the individual will confess his or her crimes in real life. It is a really fun turn-based RPG game with much exploration as well as a blend of high school simulation. Like Persona 4 Golden, there are these different deadlines where the party members must enter the dungeons and fight off these different shadows in fashion. In the meantime, in between those different deadlines, they get to form different bonds with others, as well as get to participate in class. Like Persona 4 Golden, there's all these different bonds in which they are also captivating. The characters grow and develop, and it's just really cool to see how the protagonist is being a great leader, listening to the different team member struggles and also helping them cope with it, and also help them to become a better person, to grow and develop and become a better person, to empower these different individuals to become leaders in their own, to take leadership and be responsible in life. So yeah, that is something that I really love how Persona 5 Royal does. It depicts those different things really well. In fact, much better in my opinion. There are many moments in Persona 5 Royal in which they are really touching to me, in which they resonate in me so much better than Persona 4 Golden, even though I love Persona 4 Golden as well. So hence, Persona 5 Royal touches me so much more. It's much more personal, so that's why I put Persona 5 Royal further up in the list as number 4. But anyways, Persona 5 Royal, there is one thing that I have to warn you guys. I gotta warn you that Persona 5 Royal, if you are playing Persona 5 Royal to get the full package to get everything that Persona 5 Royal has to offer, you have to make sure to do your research on which bonds you have to prioritize, because the way Persona 5 Royal works is that there are certain bonds that are essential to move up in the story arc in order for you to get the extra semester in Persona 5 Royal, which is not present in the base game, the base Persona 5 game back in 2016. So yeah, just to give you a heads up, I know a lot of you are like me who don't like to look up guides because we feel like we want to figure out things on our own, sure. But for this game, it's really essential to know which bonds to prioritize so you will not miss out on certain important aspects of the game. But anyways, yeah, if you really love these turn-based RPG games where there is a beautiful cast of characters in which it can teach you so much about life as well as teach you to become a better leader, and where there are also these different dungeons that you get to fight in, as well as find those different secret areas to find those different secret treasures and whatnot. If you love all these different aspects of it with an amazing story, definitely check out Persona 5 Royal on the Steam Deck. Now, number 3, Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor is set between the events of Peter Jackson's The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy. In Shadow of Mordor, you play as Talion, a ranger and captain of Gondor, who along with his family is unfortunately captured by the Sauron Uruks and sacrificed by the Black Hand to summon the wraith of the Elk Lord Celebrimbor. However, Celebrimbor suffers amnesia due to being a wraith and merges with Talion, which in turn resurrects Talion and tags along with Talion to go on the mission to seek vengeance against Sauron. Shadow of Mordor, in my opinion, is a very engaging open world game with tons of enemies to fight, places to explore, side quests that enhance the story, as well as a nice, unique nemesis system with a beautiful soundtrack, bringing Middle-earth Lord of the Rings vibes to it. What I love about the nemesis system is that you can track down those different Uruks, and where defeating the captains will weaken their goons, while being defeated by them will unfortunately level up the Uruks. So yeah, if you really love action games in which there are these immense worlds to explore, as well as there's also a unique nemesis system in which you will not see too much in any other type of games, in which there's a unique gameplay aspect to it, as well as there's a beautiful world for you to marvel about because you love Lord of the Rings, definitely check out Shadow of Mordor on the Steam Deck. Number 2, Shadow of War. Shadow of War is a direct sequel to Shadow of Mordor. In Shadow of War, we see Talion and Celebrimbor head to Mount Doom to create yet another ring of power that is fresh and clean with no corruption from Sauron whatsoever. However, things turn nasty once the ring was created and Celebrimbor gets captured by Shelob, where Shelob threatens Talion to give her the ring or else she would keep Celebrimbor hostage. Due to her claiming that she and Talion have mutual hate towards an enemy in Sauron, Talion reluctantly hands over the ring, and here's what Shelob has to say as she sees into the future before heading out on the mission. What I love about the gameplay in Shadow of War is that, in my opinion, it is much better, it is much refined than Shadow of Mordor. There are much more spices added to Shadow of War. There's a much bigger world to explore, roam, fight, and engage in those various side quests. There are also a much bigger variety of weapons that you can use in battle. However, if this is not enough, what I am most impressed with Monolith Studios is them buffing the Nemesis system. In Shadow of War, when an enemy is dominated, they become spies to eavesdrop on various war chiefs and bring the intel back to Talion. Also, they can either become friends to Talion or become foes depending on how you as Talion treat them afterwards. Like, if you protect or abandon them during the battle, it can really affect how they will treat Talion. If you abandon them in battle, they could somehow side with Sauron again, and therefore they will just betray Talion and become an enemy once more. So yeah, if you really love Shadow of Mordor and you think that you don't have enough of Shadow of Mordor, definitely check out Shadow of War. I mean, Shadow of War is just a much better and bigger brother to Shadow of Mordor. But even if you are somebody who never touched Shadow of Mordor, I feel like you could definitely step into Shadow of War and still have a great time. Like I said, it is a much bigger brother to Shadow of Mordor, where there's just so many more things to do, so many different enemies to fight, so many different worlds, so many different areas in the world to explore, and so many different weapons that you can use. If you think that Shadow of Mordor, where the possibilities of gameplay is endless, then you'll feel Shadow of War just brings it into a whole new different level. But anyways, yeah, if you really love these open world action games where there is much to do, definitely check out Shadow of War on the Steam Deck. Alright guys, my favorite game of all time on the Steam Deck, and is none other than Metaphor ReFantazio. Metaphor ReFantazio is a turn-based RPG game by Atlus, who is also the studio for Persona games. So if you really enjoy Persona, you will most likely also love Metaphor as well. What Metaphor does right, in my opinion, is borrowing a lot of what Persona did and adding some spin to it and matching it with an adult version with adult themes. Metaphor ReFantazio is about how a kingdom named Ukrainia, which is in a mess because the king was being killed by an army officer named Luis, and a magic which is unique called royal magic, hence the name due to it only previously known to the king, is being invoked. With the prince being a victim to the spell and in a coma but assumed dead by the people, and now the actual king dead, this leads to chaos in Ukrainia. Now, in order to determine who will be the next king, obviously because the king is dead and the prince is now in a coma, and where everybody thinks that the prince is dead as well, they don't know who will be the next king. So they decide to issue a royal tournament which ensures the individual who manages to get the most followers, the most people to believe in him or her, if they get the most amount of followers before the due date of the crowning of a new king, they will succeed to be the successor to the throne. Now, you as the protagonist enter the royal tournament. In the meantime, you study along with the team that you meet along the way and recruit along the way the methods in order to free the prince from the spell. Much of Metaphor involves basically traveling to those various lands of Ukrainia to grow one's influence. This can be achieved by speaking on stage, engaging in various bounty hunting where you go about those different dungeons or those different towers and you fight around those different enemies. But then there's also another thing that you get to do in Metaphor is you get to form those various bonds with key characters called followers in Metaphor ReFantazio and leveling them up to better your chances of fighting, but also this helps in growing your influence as well. As for combat, Metaphor also shines with the studying of various archetypes which serve as classes in RPG games. The archetypes can be learned by each character, can be swapped and whatever, and changed to accompany those different enemy strengths and weaknesses, whether it is in a dungeon, climbing up a tower, going in the desert, and so forth. There's a variety of different landscapes in which you fight those different enemies, and where there is all these different backgrounds that just looks so much different and paints a perfect picture of how the United Kingdom may look like if it was during those medieval times. And what I also love about Metaphor as well is the character development aspect to it. Like the Persona games, there is also this thing about leveling up those different followers. I mean, they call it followers here as opposed to bonds, but you get the same point. I mean, the major thing is that every single character in which I level up, they all have a unique story to tell in which they can relate to me one way or the other. And throughout the various encounters, there's those numerous plot twists, the many dialogues, as well as the amount of weight the protagonist carry in loving those around him. He really motivates me to become a better person, to become a better leader, and to serve those people that I am entrusted to. Someone who serves others instead of demanding to be served. Someone who doesn't misuse his power to control, but to empower others to take leadership in their own atmospheres of influence. I could go on and on about Metaphor because I love this game to death, and I am most likely planning to do an in-depth review sharing my thoughts of Metaphor later down in the line, because this is one of my favorite games of all times. But yeah, to sum it up, if you are somebody who loves these turn-based RPG games, and you love the Persona games, but at the same time, you like characters that resonate better with you, because in this game, it is much more adult-like in my opinion. It is not the high school vibes anymore. It is somebody who is going up to become king and also stepping up and taking responsibility. If that is something that more resonates with you, definitely check out Metaphor ReFantazio. It will definitely not disappoint. But yeah, guys, these are the top 30 must-play games in which I will recommend any Steam Deck owner to check out. Let me know in the comment section below, are there any games in which you will want me to check out that I didn't mention on the list? And as always, if you love gaming discussions, gaming reviews, gaming lists, and everything related to Steam Deck, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so you'll not miss another video. I try to post Mondays and Fridays around 6 p.m. Pacific time, so stay tuned. Once again, my name is Joe Wang from the Nomadic Gaming Guild, and game on!